Good morning, Night Nation. It is Tuesday. We're ready for another day of virtual learning, and we're going to start off our day in God's Word as we wrap up our time talking about Deuteronomy 6 and 7. I don't think there's any better place to end our time together than in the Gospels, where Jesus in several of the Gospels mentions the greatest command. And so we find in Matthew chapter 22, Jesus is closing in near to the crucifixion, and he's in Jerusalem, and there's these different groups, different people who have questions. Some at best are trying to maybe help him fit into their group. At worst, they're trying to find ways to test him or to trap him. And so we see that throughout Matthew 22, and we get to verse 34, verse 33. It says, when the crowd heard it, his discussion with the Sadducees about resurrection, they were astonished at his teaching. And then verse 34, but when the Pharisees heard they had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. And so what we see here is this: he's already talked with the Pharisees at least once, and now they're kind of back again because, hey, he shut the Sadducees up, so maybe, just maybe, he's more in line with us, and so let's find out by asking this question. And so it's a lawyer who asked him a question, and we know that Deuteronomy is a part of the law, and so Jesus asked, or actually the teacher asked, or he asked the teacher, which is the greatest command in the law? And he said to them, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And so we find him quoting Deuteronomy chapter 6. The greatest command is to love the Lord your God with all that you have. And I think that it's interesting that, the context is the law. And so if you look at the 10 commandments, the first few commandments have to do with our relationship to God, or at least in being acceptable to God. What is it to please God? Then we have the Sabbath, which is kind of overlapping of the two. We honor God by taking the Sabbath off, but it also helps us rest. It helps us not to be, at the very least, so ill and run down and tired towards our brothers and sisters or to our neighbor. And so he commands to love the Lord your God. And then he comes in with Leviticus 19, verse 38. This is the great and first commandment, and a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. And so, that was kind of the crux, especially for these Pharisees who accepted all the Old Testament versus some others who only accepted the law. And so he says, hey, the whole thing, the whole house is built on loving God with all that you have and loving your neighbors yourself. And that's important because I believe our measuring stick of how we're loving God is how we love others. And so my wife has been studying, has a little study book that she's been doing, and it had a nice little breakdown of the law. And it says there's the civil use. It restrains evil. At the very least, it tries to limit the evil that can be done. It might not ever truly change someone's mind, the law of the land, but it does try to hold people in check. It does set some guidelines. We also know that there are some folks who just want to be outlaws, and no matter how much law or bureaucracy you put on, they're going to do their own thing. They're going to find a way to do the wrong thing. But it does restrain evil. We want to limit the bad. It has the educational use. It's a mirror and a window. We know that even in the gospel, in the New Testament, it says it's the perfect law of liberty. And then, of course, there's the moral use. It reveals what is pleasing to God. And so the question today is once again, how are you loving God? By how you're loving those around you. It's really easy to get caught up in these big movements, and I'm certainly not against obviously being able to speak out about your beliefs. That's what I'm doing right now. But we have to understand that Christianity is playing the long game, that we love those who are in our proximity, and it changes hearts, and then it changes the world. And so today, let's accept the challenge to love our neighbor, quite literally the person right next to us, and by that we can truly know that we are loving God. Have a great day, Night Nation.